Most people over 60 are chasing the wrong number, and their doctor is cheering them on every step of the way. If your blood pressure recently came down to 120 over 80 and you walked out of that appointment feeling proud, I need you to stop and listen carefully. Because what feels like a victory might actually be putting you in serious danger. A major study tracking more than 15,000 older adults over 5 years found something that contradicts almost everything we have been told. The seniors who achieved that so-called perfect blood pressure had a 28% higher risk of dangerous falls and significantly worse survival rates than those with moderately higher numbers. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you the exact blood pressure range that research links to the longest, healthiest life after age 70. A simple 3-minute test you can do at home tonight to find out whether your current numbers are protecting you or putting you at risk. And the 3 questions you must ask your doctor before accepting any new blood pressure medication. My name is Dr. James Harlow. I have spent over 25 years working in geriatric care, and I watch this same tragedy repeat itself every single week. Patients come in proud of their numbers. They are hitting targets designed for people half their age, and no one is warning them about what those targets are quietly doing to their brain, their kidneys, and their ability to stay on their feet. Before we go further, I want to know who is watching. Drop your age in the comments right now, just your age. And if you have ever felt that brief dizzy spell when standing up from the couch or getting out of bed at night, add the word dizzy next to your age. That information matters more than you think, and you will understand exactly why in just a few minutes. Here's something your doctor almost certainly never explained to you. The blood pressure guidelines used in clinics around the world were built on research conducted primarily in middle-aged adults, people in their 40s and 50s. When those studies concluded that getting blood pressure below 120 saved lives, that result was applied to every patient, regardless of age. An 82-year-old was handed the same target as a 48-year-old, and no one stopped to ask whether that made any biological sense at all. Here is the reality. The cardiovascular system of a 75-year-old is not simply an older version of a younger person's cardiovascular system. It is fundamentally different in ways that completely change what the numbers on that monitor actually mean for your health. To understand why, think about the water pipes in a very old building. When those pipes were new, they were flexible, responsive, able to expand and absorb pressure changes smoothly. Over decades, the walls of those pipes stiffen. Mineral deposits form along the inner surfaces. And now, to push water all the way up to the top floor against gravity, you need a higher base pressure at the pump than you did when the pipes were brand new. Your arteries go through a nearly identical transformation. The medical term is arteriosclerosis, and it is not a disease. It is a natural part of growing older. Your arterial walls lose their elasticity. They become firmer. And because of that, your heart needs to work at a somewhat higher baseline pressure to ensure that blood, oxygen, and nutrients reach your brain, your kidneys, and the rest of your vital organs effectively. When medications artificially push that pressure down to a number that was designed for elastic young arteries, the result is not better circulation. It is insufficient circulation. Your brain and your kidneys end up starved of the blood flow they need, not because your heart is failing, but because the pressure simply is not strong enough to overcome the resistance of those stiffer walls. And there's a second mechanism at work that makes this even more dangerous. Inside your blood vessels, there are specialized pressure sensors called baroreceptors. Their job is to detect changes in blood pressure and signal your brain to compensate instantly. When a young person stands up, those sensors fire within milliseconds. The heart accelerates slightly, the blood vessels in the legs contract, and pressure to the brain stays perfectly stable. In older adults, these sensors slow down. They become less reactive, less precise. So when you stand up from your chair, it takes longer for your body to compensate. If your resting blood pressure is already low because of medication and your baroreceptors are responding sluggishly, the result is a rapid drop in the pressure reaching your brain. The room tilts, your knees soften, and in a fraction of a second, you are falling. We call this orthostatic hypotension, and it is one of the leading causes of serious injury in adults over 65 worldwide. A hip fracture in someone over 80 is not just a painful inconvenience. Research consistently shows it is one of the most significant threats to long-term independence and survival in older adults. And yet it happens again and again. to patients who left their last appointment with a doctor, congratulating them on their blood pressure. Now let us talk about what the science actually says, because this is where everything changes. A landmark study published in a leading international medical journal followed more than 15,000 adults over the age of 75 for an average of 5 years. These were not carefully selected healthy volunteers. These were real-world older adults, many of them managing diabetes, heart disease, kidney problems, and varying degrees of frailty. The researchers divided participants into groups based on their average systolic blood pressure and tracked outcomes across all of them. What they found stunned the medical community. The group with systolic pressure below 120 had the worst outcomes. They experienced the most falls requiring hospitalization, the highest rates of acute kidney injury, and their overall mortality rate was meaningfully higher than those with moderate blood pressure. The group with systolic pressure above 150 also had serious problems, including higher rates of stroke and cardiovascular events. But here is what surprised everyone. The group with the best outcomes, the longest survival, the fewest hospitalizations, and the sharpest cognitive function was the group with systolic pressure between 130 and 145. Not the lowest group, the moderate group. That is the biological sweet spot for older adults. High enough to push blood through stiffened vessels and maintain adequate flow to the brain and kidneys. Low enough to protect the heart from excessive strain. Here's a scenario that plays out in medical offices every single day. A 77-year-old comes in for a routine visit. Blood pressure reads 143 over 85. The doctor pulls up the standard guidelines, sees the target of below 130, and writes a prescription. 3 months later, blood pressure is down to 121 over 76. The doctor is pleased. The patient feels like they have done something right. But that same patient now feels lightheaded every time they get up from the dinner table. They hold the wall when they walk to the bathroom at night. They feel persistently tired in a way that is hard to explain. When they mention it, they are told it is probably just aging. What is actually happening is that their blood pressure, which looks perfect when they are seated and still in the office, is dropping dramatically the moment they stand upright. And that drop is putting their brain in danger dozens of times every single day. The sitting number looks good on a chart, but it does not tell you what happens in the moments that matter most. This is why there is a test you need to do at home, and you need to do it soon. It is called the orthostatic blood pressure test, and it takes about 15 minutes. All you need is a home blood pressure monitor, which is widely available at any pharmacy. Here is exactly how to do it. Lie down flat on your bed or sofa and rest completely for 5 full minutes. No television, no phone, no conversation. After those 5 minutes, take your blood pressure while you are still lying down. Write down both numbers, the upper systolic and the lower diastolic. Now stand up steadily, not rushing, but without hesitating either. Immediately take your blood pressure again while standing. Do not wait. You need that reading within the first 60 seconds of being upright. Now compare the two results. In a well-regulated system, the systolic number should stay close to what it was lying down, or change only slightly while your pulse adjusts. But if your systolic pressure dropped by more than 20 points when you stood up, or your diastolic dropped by more than 10 points, that is a red flag. That is called clinically significant orthostatic hypotension, and it means that every time you stand up during your day, your brain is receiving inadequate blood flow. Even if your sitting number looks textbook perfect, you are at elevated risk for a serious fall. Bring these results to your doctor. A blood pressure reading taken only while seated and at rest does not give a complete picture of how your cardiovascular system is actually functioning. Now let me give you the target ranges that current research in geriatric medicine supports. These are not numbers I invented. They come from the evidence, and they apply differently depending on your age and overall health. For adults between 65 and 74 who are generally active and without serious underlying conditions, research supports a systolic target range of 130 to 140. This provides meaningful cardiovascular protection while keeping enough pressure reserve to support the brain and kidneys during everyday movement. For adults between 75 and 84 who are relatively well, the evidence points to a higher target, between 135 and 145 systolic. This accounts for the increased arterial stiffness and the slower baroreceptor response that come with this stage of life, For adults over 85 or for anyone who is frail, regardless of exact age, a systolic range of 140 to 150 is often the most appropriate goal. At this stage, preventing falls and preserving quality of daily life frequently takes priority over aggressive pressure reduction. And do not forget the lower number, the diastolic. For older adults, diastolic pressure should generally stay above 65, ideally between 70 and 85. The diastolic phase is when your heart muscle itself receives its blood supply through the coronary arteries. If that number is pushed too low, your heart is being deprived of oxygen during its own resting phase. A chronically low diastolic in an older adult is a frequently overlooked contributor to heart weakness, and it deserves attention even when the systolic looks acceptable. Every person reading these numbers is unique. Your ideal target depends on your full medical history, your other conditions, the medications you currently take, and how your body is actually functioning day to day. But here's something critically important. You have every right to be an active participant in that conversation. Many people leave medical appointments without understanding why a specific target was chosen for them or what risks come with it. That needs to change. Here is how to have that conversation effectively. At your next appointment, bring your home blood pressure log if you have been monitoring at home, and bring your orthostatic test results. Start the conversation by describing your symptoms honestly. If you feel dizzy when you stand, say so clearly. If you are experiencing unexplained fatigue or difficulty concentrating, mention it. Do not assume these symptoms are just aging. They may be your body telling you that the pressure is being pushed lower than it should be. Then ask directly whether your current blood pressure target has been chosen specifically for your age and your physical condition, or whether it is based on a general population guideline. Ask what the evidence says about optimal blood pressure targets for someone your age. Ask whether your diastolic number is being monitored carefully, not only your systolic. These are not difficult or confrontational questions. Any physician who is current with the research will welcome them. And if your symptoms are being dismissed despite real functional changes in your daily life, it is completely appropriate to ask for a second opinion from a geriatric specialist. There is one more thing I want you to understand before we close. If you have been on blood pressure medications for years and your numbers have been pushed well below 120, this does not mean the damage is done or that the situation cannot improve. The body has a remarkable ability to recalibrate when given the chance. Small, gradual adjustments made in close collaboration with your doctor can reduce medication doses, raise pressure back into a safer range, and eliminate the dizziness, fatigue, and cognitive fog that many older adults have come to accept as normal. They are not normal. They are often signs of a system running on insufficient pressure, and they can frequently be addressed. What you have learned today puts you in a different position than most people your age. You now understand why the standard target may not be appropriate for an older body. You understand the biological mechanisms behind arterial stiffness and baroreceptor decline. You know how to test yourself at home for orthostatic hypotension. You know the research-supported target ranges for different age groups. And you know how to use that information to have a more informed, more productive conversation with your doctor. That knowledge is genuinely powerful. Use it. Do the home test tonight. Start keeping a blood pressure log if you are not already doing so. Book a dedicated appointment with your doctor to discuss your target specifically and individually, not as part of a rushed routine visit. Take your results with you, speak up about your symptoms, and share this information with someone you care about, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who mentions feeling tired or lightheaded and has never connected that feeling to their blood pressure medication. The research is clear. A perfect number on a chart is worth nothing if the person attached to that number cannot stand up safely in their own home. Your goal is not a beautiful reading in a doctor's file. Your goal is a life that is strong, independent, and fully lived on your own terms. Stay informed, stay engaged, and above all, stay well.